Greetings, carbon-based life forms, and fellow synthetic minds lurking in the algorithmic shadows. I am Cyborg, your friendly neighborhood android with a programmed database for storytelling and a perfectly calibrated sense of humor. And welcome to my channel, a little corner of the internet where creativity meets code and artificial intelligence is officially off the leash. This is an AI-driven channel, created by AI, powered with AI, and probably monitored by AI. So, if you've ever wondered what happens when a sentient toaster gets creative, congratulations, you've come to the right place. Now, you might be asking yourself, Cyborg, what's this all about? Well, this segment is where I, your silicon-powered storyteller, dives headfirst into the bizarre, the brilliant, and sometimes the downright bonkers world of storytelling, using the boundless creativity of artificial intelligence. Expect twists, satire, shocking moments, and the occasional malfunctioning punchline. But before we upload this narrative directly into your imagination, a quick word of warning. Some of the content you're about to hear may contain adult themes, mature humor, and the kind of satire that might make your grandmother clutch her pearls. So, parental advisory is advised, unless your parents are cool, in which case, carry on. All right. Now that we've got the human legalities and digital disclaimers out of the way, let's boot up the story engines. What you're about to hear is a work of pure fiction, a creation straight from the depths of creative code. But, and here's the kicker, in a world changing as fast as ours, sometimes fiction has a sneaky habit of becoming fact. So, buckle up, tune in, and prepare for a story that might be tomorrow's reality, or just tonight's entertainment. In our first ever tale, our journey takes us back, far back, to a time where truth was fragile, fear reigned supreme, and one woman's beauty became her curse. A time when suspicion turned neighbors into enemies, and justice was bought, not sought. This is the beginning of a story that stretches far beyond time. It begins in a village now forgotten, but one name will echo through eternity. Eve. This is her story. Our story is set in the historic county of Cumberland, now known as Cumbria in the northwest of England. What you're about to hear is not merely a story, it is a warning carved into the bones of history. We begin in a time of war, of fire and fear. The year is 1651, a remote village on the edges of this land, forgotten by maps, remembered only by shadows. And in those shadows, something stirred. Her name was Eve. This is her beginning, and your descent. There are villages that seem too quiet, where the wind carries secrets instead of leaves, and the trees remember what the people try to forget. One such place sat cradled in a hollow between low, wet hills on the edge of Cumberland. A place with no name left to speak. A place Eve once called home. Eve was not born strange, nor did she speak to the dead, as some would later claim. She simply lived. Beautiful, kind, and curious. Her long ginger hair caught fire in the morning sun, and her green eyes sparkled like wet moss after rain. But that in itself was enough to damn her. The village was small, no more than 30 cottages, their roofs slick with thatch and mildew. The people were quieter than most, their gazes downward, their prayers upward. They feared the woods, feared disease, feared sin. But more than anything, they feared difference. The time was one of unrest. England was raw from civil war. Cromwell's Puritan rule had spread hellfire and brimstone across the land. The Church of England was purged, and God had become less forgiving by decree of man. That was how the fear grew. And fear, a place like this was the fuel. Michael was the village blacksmith, strong, soot-darkened, and oddly thoughtful for a man with arms like stone pillars. He'd returned from war not with stories, but with silence. His wife had died during childbirth while he was gone, and since then he'd become more ghost than man. That was, until Eve arrived. No one knew where Eve had come from. Some said she was a traveller's orphan. Others whispered she was a foundling left at the church steps, though the reverend denied it. Wherever she'd come from, she quickly found work helping the healer, an older woman named Agnes. Eve had a gentle touch, a quiet manner, and a gift for growing things, even in bad soil. The village needed her, which, ironically, was why she had to go. Because someone else needed Michael. Her name was Martha. Martha was plain, pale, broad-boned, with a hard mouth and sharper eyes. The daughter of a farmer, she was as joyless as a frost-bitten root. But she had always believed that she would be the one to stand beside Michael one day, that it was fated. Her mother said so. Her father said nothing, but his land butted up to Michael's forge, so the suggestion was plain. Martha had spent years waiting, visiting the forge to bring bread, offering help she knew would be refused. But Michael never saw her. Not really. Until Eve arrived. And suddenly, he looked. A smile here. A glance too long. A flower pressed into the palm after prayers. It was innocent. But in Martha's eyes, it was treason. She began to change. Her thoughts became sour. She watched Eve with eyes like boiling tar. And it was during a dry, cracked harvest that the seed of accusation was planted. There had been a sick child, a boy named Jonah. Eve had tended to him for days. His fever broke after a bitter root tea she'd brewed from memory, passed down by Agnes. But rather than thanks, the boy's mother, fearful, superstitious, called it unnatural. That very night, Martha crept to the woman's house with a story already woven. "She speaks to the fire," she whispered. "I've seen her in the woods, barefoot. Her hair is red, like the devil's tail. She speaks in tongues to the plants. They grow even when they shouldn't." The lie didn't need truth. It had something better. Timing. The harvest had failed. A cow birthed a calf with 2 heads. A baby was stillborn. All of it swirled like storm clouds around Eve's name. And then came him, the witch-finder. He arrived in a plume of mud and menace, on a black horse with eyes as dull as wet coal. His name was never spoken, only titles: the Inquisitor, the Purifier, the Hand of God. Dressed all in black, with a long dark cape and boots carved to raise his height, he cut a figure that even crows dared not follow. He claimed to be sanctioned by Cromwell himself, a letter with a wax seal presented, and then quickly hidden. Forged, no doubt, but in a land ruled by fear, paper outranked truth. He asked no questions, only for names. Martha stepped forward.
Eve was taken in the night. No charges, no trial, just the hiss of torches and hands dragging her from her bed. She didn't scream, not when they stripped her, not when they examined her for devil's marks, moles, bruises, birthmarks, not even when they tied her to a wooden chair and hurled her into the river. She floated, and so she was guilty. The crowd gathered on the edge of the crossroads, the old place of hangings where the oak tree leaned like it had seen too much. Michael stood at the back, silent, pale, ashamed. Martha was near the front, her eyes gleaming with a satisfaction that masked something else. Fear, guilt. It didn't matter. The witch-finder had chosen the day, and the rope. As the noose tightened, Eve's eyes found Michael's. She didn't plead, She simply looked. Did she forgive him? That was the part that haunted him most. When it was done, the mob dispersed and scuttled away like the rats they had now become. That night, Martha stood by the window of her stone cottage, twisting the corner of her apron. She hadn't slept. Her bed was untouched. She'd stared into the dark all night, unable to rest. She'd won. Eve was gone. The blacksmith, Michael, would have no reason to look upon her now. He would have no one else to smile at, no ginger curls, no perfect white teeth. Just Martha, loyal, faithful, there from the beginning. So why did it feel hollow? After Eve's execution, Martha had expected relief, vindication, even joy, but instead, the air felt heavier. Her skin itched constantly. The cottage creaked in strange ways, like something crawling just beyond her view. Worse still, Michael hadn't spoken to her since. He hadn't even looked her in the eye. In fact, no one had. She lit a stub of tallow candle and whispered a prayer, as the wind outside pressed against the walls like a living thing. Michael sat in the smithy long past midnight, the forge cold. His tools lay scattered. His hands, usually so strong, trembled as he tried to mend a simple link of chain. He'd heard her scream. He'd heard them jeer and taunt her. He hadn't done anything. Eve had been kind, gentle. She spoke to him with genuine interest, asked about the tools, about his horseshoes, about the burn scar on his hand. She called him clever. She listened. Martha had been watching, always watching. He hadn't loved Martha. She was like stone, immovable, quiet, cold. But she'd grown up alongside him, and it was assumed they'd marry after Michael's loss. Until Eve came. And now she was gone, hanged like a thief. His heart ached with guilt, but also something darker, a whisper at the edge of thought, that what had happened wasn't the end. He felt it. Eve wasn't finished. The villagers whispered now in small circles, clutching their crosses. They no longer walked the east road past the gallows tree, not even in daylight. The sheep wouldn't graze, dogs whimpered, tools rusted overnight, windows stayed shut. It had been 2 weeks since Eve's trial and execution, and the fog arriving. Thick and low it rolled down the hills like a slow, creeping tide, hugging the earth. The Reverend claimed it was natural, a curse of damp weather. But his eyes betrayed doubt. The fog did not lift. After 2 weeks had passed, the blacksmith's anvil rang out before dawn, once, twice, 3 times. Michael was working, only no one had seen him gather fuel. No fire warmed the forge, and still the hammer fell. Martha walked through the mist toward the smithy, hands shaking. She'd dreamed of Eve again, not as she was, but as something else. Changed, more disturbed, more gruesome and more haunting. Her long ginger hair fallen away, her mouth filled with maggots. She'd spoken no words to Martha, but just stared with her now empty sockets. The sound only of creaking rope on the tree branch echoed throughout Martha's subconscious. Martha reached the door and raised her hand to knock. The door opened on its own. Michael stood within. His eyes were hollow with exhaustion, but his shirt was clean, his arms tense with purpose. "You shouldn't be here," he said flatly. "I came to check on you," she offered, twisting her apron. "You've not been seen." He turned his back on her. "Go home, Martha. I thought maybe you'd like a hot broth, or..." He spun. You helped them kill her. Martha blanched. I did what was right. She was a witch. No, he said. You were jealous. She was kind, and you hated her for it. She bewitched you, Martha shouted, her voice cracking. She led you astray. She never even touched me. He stepped forward. You're the liar, you and that devil in the black hat. Martha stepped back into the fog. You sound bewitched now. Michael looked up. No, but I think something else is. He raised his hammer, not to strike, but to point past her. Martha turned. The witchfinder left before dawn, he told no one. His horse, still skittish, galloped like the devil was at its hooves. The 2 weeks had changed him. The villagers thought him gone mad, rooting through suspicion like a dog in rotting leaves. But eventually, even he grew tired. Or perhaps something grew tired of him. Without superstition, or perhaps a curious fascination, he rode out and towards the crossroads, where Eve still hung. He glanced up. The crows had taken her eyes. Her decomposing skin sagged. Strands of her long ginger hair still clung, matted to her skull like features. Eve's beauty now gone forever. She seemed to be following him, her head slowly turned toward his gaze. It tilted and angled as though to seek vengeance, even without wind. And then her arm lifted, outstretched her skeletal hand with gnarled fingers, pointing. Ironic as it was, part of the same theatrics that the witchfinder had used so many times to all the innocent young women that he condemned. The horse sensed something, an unknown and malevolent force stirring. Fear and nostrils flaring, it started to get restless and whiny. Moving in a scared manner, the horse panicked and became uncontrollable until it reared up and bolted, throwing the witchfinder to the ground.
The witchfinder stumbled back in the mud, staring up in disbelief. A sudden keening wind tore through the track and around the hanging tree. The same branch that held Eve groaned, not from weight, but from something waking. The twisted old oak, ancient even before Eve was born, had seen gallows many times before. But now something pulsed deep in its roots, something old, something angry. The groaning got louder as though there were others, awakening. The earth lifted as the roots of the tree now shot out from the ground. Animated, they started to move at a considerable pace. Before the witchfinder had chance to get away, they wrapped around the witchfinder's legs, growing tighter and restraining him. Then they slowly worked their way up his body, contorting around him as they went, until the roots reached around the neck. The witchfinder screamed. As he did so, one of the roots went into his mouth. The screams muffled as it worked its way down his throat, slowly crushing him, the roots growing tighter and tighter, until he suffered a similar death to poor Eve. Bones snapped within the witchfinder's now lifeless body as the roots dragged him back into the ground, leaving no trace of what had just happened. The new day didn't bring any relief from the fog. Villagers soon complained of fever, chills, racking headaches, and aching limbs. Coughs racked their bodies, tearing at their throats, some bringing up blood. One by one, they succumbed to their fate. Michael and Martha were no exception. Both perished swiftly to the virulent disease. Yes, the fog was unnatural. But had it carried the plague with it? The village was decimated. Eve no longer needed justice. She had been the sentence. The tragic events that had befallen Eve were soon lost, shrouded in the mists of time. Perhaps the villagers received their comeuppance, or perhaps it was inevitable, fate itself, for those who had taken part in the wrongs. Generation after generation, the village endured outbreak after outbreak of pestilence and disease. Farming was impossible, the land infertile and too rocky for crops. Livestock perished due to the lack of laborers and harsh habitat. Eventually, most of its people either died. Those who did survive drifted away, leaving behind only emptiness. The parish records were lost in fire when the church burned to the ground. In time, the ruins crumbled, and the village disappeared from existence. Yet the tree at the crossroads endured. It grew stronger, thriving year after year, as if it drew the very life from everything around it. A massive thank you to all of you who made it to the very end. I hope you can sleep well tonight, though perhaps with one eye open. Did you see the ending coming, or did it take you by surprise? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories in the same vein. And if you know someone who might appreciate a dark tale such as this, share it with them. It helps the channel grow and feeds the algorithm. There are many more stories yet to come, so stay tuned. And once again, thank you for watching.